And now, it's my absolute pleasure to hand the rostrum over to our Shadow Business Secretary, Rebecca Long-Bailey, who will tell you more of the details of our policy. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, thank you, Jeremy and Chi, for those very kind introductions. And I'd like to thank the staff here today for welcoming us here to this fantastic space in York Science Park. Now, I'm sure many of you know that York has a proud industrial past. In the 19th century, many of the sweets and chocolate brands we all know and love, like Terry's and Rowntree's, started production here in York. And by the end of the century, confectionery production was a major employer here, second only to the railways. Now, confectionery production maintains a presence here in York, but like many industrial communities across the north of England, the industry has faced significant challenges. Only a few weeks ago, Nestlé announced job cuts across a number of factories, including York, and the move of blue ribboned production to Poland. Now, the decline of these industries and indeed other key manufacturing hubs across the country has largely been due to the economic choices made by successive governments. They didn't just leave a gap in the jobs market and a gaping hole in our economy. Their exit from places up and down Britain quite simply ripped the heart and soul out of communities, leaving many areas struggling to bounce back. Those communities felt left behind, their pride, hopes and dreams shattered. But in the last few weeks, Labour has used this election campaign as an opportunity to lay out a bold vision of a different Britain. A Britain that will rebuild those communities. A Britain that looks after its sick and elderly. A Britain that gives every child the chance to reach their full potential, and in which going to university doesn't leave you saddled with tens of thousands of pounds worth of debt. A Britain in which everyone who works earns enough to live on, and everyone who doesn't work has the chance of finding a decent, fulfilling job. It's a Britain that is quite simply fairer, richer and happier. Now, today I'm here to talk about how we build that Britain, because we can't do it with an economy that relies on debt-driven consumption to drive growth, with families using credit cards simply to get by each week. We can't do it with an economy that's so imbalanced that people in London earn £134 more a week than people here in Yorkshire, and in which the top 1% own 24% of the wealth. Now, Labour's manifesto is a promise to rewrite the rules in favour of the majority of people. And today I will set out how we will do that for our economy. For years, Britain's economy has been rigged in favour of a narrow but powerful interest in the financial sector in one corner of England. Now, we were led to believe that released from the shackles of regulation, the growth of the City of London could sustain the whole economy. That we shouldn't worry about our once proud industrial communities being sent into managed decline because we had the welfare state to redistribute to areas that were left out of London's growth. That we shouldn't worry that swathes of the country were seeing their potential wasted, or that the activities of the financial sector grew more and more detached from people's needs because all that mattered was headline growth. Now, the 2007 financial crisis showed us the dangers of an economy overly reliant on an unfettered and highly volatile financial sector. But Britain's yet to learn that lesson. Headline growth may have recovered since the crisis, but the structural weaknesses of Britain's economy remain. Our economy continues to be grossly imbalanced sectorally towards the service sector and geographically towards the London and the South East. Productivity and investment are stagnant. Our balance of payment deficit shows no sign of shrinking, and average earnings are not expected to return to 2008 levels before 2021. Now, it's completely unacceptable, in my view, that 10 years on from the financial crisis, people who played no part in creating it are still paying the price today. And the country's decision to leave the EU last summer has raised the stakes even higher. When Britain leaves the EU, developing a new economic model, a new role for Britain in the world will not just be desirable, but it will be essential. Now, the Conservatives have set out their stall, choosing bombastic rhetoric over serious strategies for negotiations. They've picked winners, offering bespoke deals whilst leaving most businesses out in the cold. They insist that no deal is better than a bad deal. But the businesses I speak to all across the country know that this is complete nonsense. Now, if we crash out of the EU without a deal, it will destroy what remains of our industrial base and fire the starting gun in a race to the bottom on wages and workers' rights, quite frankly. Now, Labour's vision couldn't be more different. We've said repeatedly that we will put our economy first in Brexit negotiations, but we'll go further than that. We'll break with the failed economic policies of the past, define a new relationship between government and the economy, and rebuild our economy on a better model. Unlike the Conservatives, Labour won't shy away from making full use of all available policy levers. We'll work in partnership with business and trade unions to rebalance our economy so that it serves the many, not the few. Our National Transformation Fund and £250 billion of lending by our new National Investment Bank and network of regional development banks will transform our economy and deliver 1 million good jobs over the course of the next Parliament. Now, Labour's plan is centred around three key pillars. Firstly, national missions to address the biggest societal issues of our time. Secondly, a set of cross-cutting policies to create a fertile ground for business growth. And thirdly, collaboration and support at a sectoral level. Following the work of leading economist Mariana Mazzucato, Labour will set national missions to tackle the defining problems of our age. To meet these missions, the public sector will make strategic investments that catalyse private sector innovation. Now, our first mission, and you've already heard this from Jeremy earlier, was to ensure that 60% of the UK's energy will come from low carbon or renewable sources by 2030. Climate change, as we know over recent days with Donald Trump's announcement, is quite simply the biggest challenge confronting humanity. And our ambitious target will spur the kind of bold and decisive action that has so far been lacking. But not only that, it will also help our economy and put us at the forefront of an emerging global renewable technology market. For climate change is a threat, but it's also an economic opportunity. Transforming our energy system and investing in renewable technologies will create good jobs, boost our exports and lower the price of energy for everyone. Now, Britain is also home to the greatest innovative minds of our time. We've led the world in science and technology, and as a child I marvelled at the technological advancements that my region in Greater Manchester had contributed to Britain. When my dad took me to the Museum of Science and Industry in Manchester, we invented the computer there. We discovered graphene, just to name but a few. And I was proud of my industrial heritage growing up. But you know what? I don't want our pride to be consigned to mere school trips to museums. I want us to rewrite history, where Britain leads the world going forward in science and innovation, where we are the leaders of the next industrial revolution, where our sense of pride comes not only from the greatness of the British people and our history, but also the services and products we manufacture and deliver in the future. I call it industrial patriotism. So our second mission is to put Britain at the forefront of world innovation and to ensure that the products and services we create are manufactured and delivered here in Britain. We'll create an innovation nation with the greatest proportion of high-skilled jobs in the OECD and 3% of our GDP spent on research and development by 2030. Innovation is essential to improving our productivity, which is the best means of raising wages and boosting the competitiveness of British industry. The UK has world-leading technological industries and research institutions, but we're lagging behind in terms of investment in R&D, spending only 1.7% of GDP compared to the OECD average of 2.4%. We simply aren't competing. The next Labour government will immediately invest £1.3 billion in the first 2 years of government, a proven way to galvanise the private sector into investing much more. We'll establish 2 new catapult centres, one for retail and one for metals, reflecting the breadth and diversity of the UK economy. Now, in setting these missions, we are laying down the gauntlet to business. Central government will do its part by providing the foundations on which they can be met. We'll invest in people and ensure that businesses can access the highly skilled workforce they want by setting up our National Education Service, allowing everyone to upskill and retrain at any point in their life. We'll harness the £200 billion the government spends in the private sector each year to promote responsible businesses. We will direct public money back into local economies so that local pounds create local jobs. We'll take action to reverse the offshoring seen in recent decades by bringing supply chains and good jobs back to the UK. But we'll do so by highlighting and extending Britain's strengths, because we know we can't win a race to the bottom on wages and conditions. Labour will also take action on excessive energy prices, which put our industries at a disadvantage. We'll reverse years of underinvestment in our infrastructure, investing £250 billion over the next 10 years through our National Transformation Fund. We'll introduce a universal service obligation for super-fast broadband at 3 times the speed promised by the Tories, future-proofing the UK economy. We'll transform our transport systems all across regions and all across our nations. Here in Yorkshire, we'll deliver Crossrail for the north to connect our wonderful northern cities. But it's not just in terms of public sector investment that Britain has been falling behind. Businesses need help to invest more too. And that's why Labour will set up a national investment bank to fill gaps in lending to the private sector and provide the patient, long-term finance businesses need to grow and prosper. Now, finally, our industrial strategy will have a strong sectoral element. As the work of economist Ha-Joon Chang has shown, the strongest industrial economies in the world, Germany, South Korea, Japan, got to where they are today because their governments nurtured and supported key sectors as they grew. A Labour government will do the same. We'll break with the failed ideologies of the past and learn from the world's best by supporting sectors in which Britain is already a world leader and cultivating new strengths. We'll set up sector councils for each strategic sector, modelled on the highly successful Automotive Council, to bring together government, employers, workers and their trade unions as part of a new era of economic cooperation. Through collaborative effort between government and industry, Labour will create the winners of the future. We'll make sure that Britain is viewed by the world as a symbol of innovative and industrial excellence. We'll produce 1 million high-quality, high-skilled, high-paid jobs. We will deliver economic growth to every region and every nation. And quite simply, Labour will build an economy that works for the many. not the few. Thank you very much.